Hey everyone, it's ADHD Awareness Month. So if you're looking for a full immersion experience into ADHD, the 2022 Annual International Conference on ADHD is coming up November 17th through the 19th in Dallas, Texas. Whether you have it, whether you treat it, you research it, or love someone with it, or all of the above, this year's conference will have more than 90 events, workshops, networking sessions, support groups, and a talent show is so fantastic, even Simon Cowell would enjoy it. Whether you attend in person or you grab a virtual ticket, I was able to get ADHD reWired listeners a 15% discount off the conference. To get that, go to ADHDrewired.com/ADHDCon2022. That's ADHDrewired.com/ADHDCon, as in conference, 2022. So it's ADHDCon 2022. That's after the ADHDrewired.com. I hope to see you there. I'm presenting there with Coach Kat Hoyer. We'll be talking all about accountability. All right, let's get on with the episode. ADHD Rewired, episode 450. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. We have our live Q&A today. We are recording this on September 13th, 2022. We have our usual panel here. We have Coach Kristen Martz. Hello, Kristen. How's it going?
I am coming to you straight from Knoxville, Tennessee today. I am helping my mom out this couple of weeks. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we have MJ Siemens, the host of ADHD Diversified and the editor of this here podcast.
Happy True Tuesday.
Happy to you as well. And we have Will Curb, the host of, my brain just went, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know why. Of Hacking Your ADHD.
Good to be here to help curb your ADHD.
Oh my God.
I think it's the opposite right now.
That was great. And we have Brendan Mahan, the host of ADHD Essentials.
Hi, everybody.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Good. And we have Coach Kat Hoyer, one of our ADHD Rewired coaches.
I want you to ask me how I'm doing.
How you doing?
I'm finer than frog hair split 3 ways.
Oh my God, I'm such a nerd. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We have some questions that are coming in now, and we are going to start with Steve, who has a question. So let me get you unmuted here, Steve.
Hey, folks.
How's it going?
It's going. Thanks for taking the time to answer my question.
You bet.
So yeah, I would like any tips and recommendations for fine-tuning my medication routine. I've been taking Adderall for quite a while as an adult, and recently I've noticed that it's been less effective, and also the side effects I'm feeling might be increasing a bit. And I've just sort of taken the Adderall because, that's that I feel like maybe there could be a better medication dosage, routine, etc. for me, but I don't really know how to begin that process.
Okay, so I got a couple of questions. One, you said you don't feel like it's as effective as it was. Do you live with anyone?
Yes, I live with my wife.
Okay. And have you asked your wife how she sees you doing?
It's interesting because most of the time, until recently, I wasn't taking my medication on weekends, and I just sort of have been trialing that recently. So she tends to not see me as much during the time when my Adderall is effective. So it's more in my workplace that I'm noticing it.
All right. Is there anyone that knows you have ADHD at work?
Yes, but my work has just gotten more and more chaotic recently as well.
Okay.
So I think that I my work isn't always like seen from a pick through with a fine tooth comb exactly. So
what feels different to you? Because I know you just said your work has been a little bit more chaotic, and I'm wondering, because part of what we want to be thinking about is, when we first start taking ADHD meds, if we have a good response to it, the difference between not being on meds and then being on meds that are helping can be huge,
yes.
right? And then one of the things that happens is that we sometimes can feel like we are potentially even not doing as well as we were, even though we actually are and possibly doing better than we were, because we're paying more attention to stuff. So it's like the stuff that maybe we didn't even realize we weren't doing or struggling with, we are now more aware of that, right? So it's looking at our, their different stressors. Are there, what's our own kind of ability to self-report in an accurate way? Because, we know that people with ADHD historically aren't the best self-reporters. So there's that. You mentioned that you are prescribed Adderall from a primary care physician. Are you taking Adderall IR, so the immediate release, or is it XR?
Yeah, 10 milligrams twice a day.
Okay. And how long have you been on that dose?
For essentially 6 years now. As a lot of people with ADHD, I tried periods where I wasn't taking it, but I've been taking it consistently for a few years now.
Okay. And is that the only thing you've tried?
When I was much younger, I tried Ritalin and Dexedrine.
Okay.
But that's so long in the past that there wasn't really a comparison.
Okay. When is your next doctor's appointment?
Well, I actually spoke with my physician about this, and she said, yeah, if you want me to refer you to someone, I'd be happy to. So I already began a conversation with her.
Okay. Have you taken that recommendation to get the referral?
Yeah, so that's exactly where I'm getting stuck. I don't know. I sort of feel like I want to find the right person. I want to find someone who is respectful for ADHD and really knows their stuff. And this is my chance, black and white thinking, but also there are a lot of bad healthcare professionals.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that I'm actually finding someone who's a good fit for me.
So Steve, when you first met your wife, did you know that she was the right person?
I did not.
Okay. Our doctors and therapists are kind of the same way. We kind of have to date them, but we just can't get involved romantically with them because there's a lot of ethical issues with that. Right. So, get the name, meet with them once or twice. You might find that this person's great. You may find this person's good enough. You may find this person is not the right person. Right. But there's no way you're going to know that until you actually make those appointments. And I know it's frustrating because it's like, oh, if it's not the right fit, then you got to start back at square one. It kind of feels like to find that right fit, but it is worth it because ADHD doesn't go away. Right. So we're looking at needing to develop relationships with our healthcare providers for a longer period of time. There are also a bunch of different rating scales that you can use to sort of assess how you're doing with these different medications. I know that Cadra, which is an organization out of Canada, has some really good rating scales that are free on their website. I think it's caddra.ca. So you can access some of the tools that way. But yeah, it might be worth exploring as well, like either different dosages or different types of medications with the doctor. But I would definitely include someone else who can give you the feedback, how they think they see you doing, because we want to get to the highest tolerable dose with the lowest side effects. Right, so that's kind of that sweet spot. Okay, I've been talking a lot. I want to see if anyone else here has any thoughts on this one, because it's a good question. Maybe I covered it. All right, moving on to the next question. Thank you so much, Steve. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
So let's go to the next person here. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing okay. All right. So what is your question?
So anytime I have work I need done on my house or in my house, I have the worst time trying to choose someone to do that. I either procrastinate forever and put it off, or I start looking at people who can do it and I overanalyze them, and then I just don't make a decision and don't get the work done. So any advice you can give for that?
So, Brenda, I'm going to let Brendan take this one, and I'm actually going to listen very, very closely because I just shared with in our alumni session with our coaching groups that I've had a list of 10 house projects that I've had on my yearly goal list for about 18 months that I have not touched. So, Brendan, please share some wisdom with us.
Let me share some background information first so you know where this is coming from. My neighbor across the street, who over the past 14 years has become a buddy of mine, is a contractor. So that's where I'm starting. And we just had our whole kitchen redone, right? So, and Jimmy, the guy across the street, does all the work in our house because duh, right? Like, obviously that's what we're going to do. So here's how, first, broadly speaking, when it comes to making decisions, like Eric just said to the previous person, just make a decision and see what happens, right? Like it's good, it's bad. You talk to someone, start to connect. Once you've got a person, stop thinking about it and ask them, because contractors know other contractors, right? Like when Jimmy comes in to do work in my house, he tells me what electrician I should hire. He tells me what plumber I should hire. He tells me who I should hire to fix up the paint. Like he knows all these people because he's got a network. So once you've got a person, and you might even already have like a carpenter, but you're looking for a plumber kind of a thing. If you've got a carpenter, ask them about plumbers because they probably know some. So you don't have to start from the beginning every time. Assuming we are starting from the beginning though, I would recommend taking a look at social media, seeing what people are saying, go on your town's Facebook group or whatever and say, who should I hire? And see who comes up the most, right? And also take a look in kind of who is bringing up who, because sometimes that's a little bit of a tell, like, oh, it's their friends that keep recommending them. Maybe they're not that great. Maybe they just have a lot of friends. But if they're people who are recommending this contractor are not friends with them on Facebook, probably it's a little bit of a better indication that there's some quality there. And look at like miscellaneous reviews anywhere, right? Like that's what the internet exists for. But at some point, you just got to make a call, right? You got to say, I picked this person. You can talk to old clients, like that's a choice. Most people will hook you up for that. But once you've got a person, stop redigging that well. You already dug it. Like now start having them send people to you. And depending on the age of the contractor, right? If you've got a contractor in their like 50s, late 40s, early 50s, you want to start asking them about like, who do you know that's coming up? Because there's not a lot of people coming up, and a lot of the older contractors are retiring and finishing and don't want to do it anymore. So you want to know, like, if my plumber is done. My plumber works on my house and like 10 other houses in the neighborhood, and that's it. Other than that, he teaches, right? Mm-hmm. And I only have him because of Jimmy. So I need a younger plumber because at some point this guy's going to be like, nope. So pay attention to age too once you get the people that you want to work with. I hope that was broad enough to give people what they needed.
So we got to find out who in our neighborhood are contractors and become friends with them.
I lucked out, but I learned a lot because of it. Oh, and one more thing. Contractors are going to come into your house and they're going to be really wishy-washy about stuff because lots and lots of people are very picky and are like, no, I know better than you, except that we don't because we're not contractors. We're not plumbers, right? So if you're comfortable saying to them, hey, I trust your judgment, I trust your expertise, what do you think I should do here? If it was your house, what would you do? Those kinds of questions, you're going to get much better information if you're really clear on, I trust you, assuming you do, than if you're like, what should I do with the paint on this woodwork? They're going to be like, well, I don't know. I mean, you could do a lot of different things. It depends on what you want. And you're like, that's not really an answer. It's because they've battled with so many clients and they've had clients blame them for stuff that they just did what the client asked and it wasn't the right thing. Like, trust them. They know what they're doing.
That's great.
So how do you define the difference between trusting them and being worried you're going to get taken advantage of?
You've got to get a relationship first and then you're good. But I'm going to send it over to Kristen so that I'm not hogging the spotlight.
Thanks.
Hi, I was going to add the idea of the bonded, insured, licensed piece too, because there's a lot of people out there that do this on the side and that sort of thing. And they may be really, really good at it, yet you still could come up with a problem. And it might be a bigger problem if you haven't looked for someone who is, I think it's called licensed, bonded, and insured or something like that. The other piece that I'm thinking about is my daughter lives in like a duplex apartment, and there have been many things that have gone wrong in that place because it wasn't up to par when she moved in, apparently. And they have bids. I mean, I don't know. I guess as residential people who own their homes, we can get bids also. So you could call someone in, have them look at your stuff, go through all those things that Brendan just talked about, because I think that's a really important piece. These people are in your home and you want to feel comfortable and safe and secure and trusting and all of that. But then to also, get the bid. And have two different people look at it.
I would say 3. And if you can, try to get them to all come at the same time, because then you can get a potential bidding war and get the best price.
Wow.
All right. And you say, oh, I didn't realize they were going to be here already. Whoops. Okay, great. Now they're all there. Now it just changes the dynamic of it a bit. Kat?
A few of you know that I've had a series of unfortunate events in my home. And one of them I thought was the handyman. It was not. It was just that it was the home. So I loved everything that Brendan said. But in terms of starting places for resources, nextdoor.com is typically a really good place to go, because that truly is your neighbors talking about what's, recommending people. And then another resource is the big box retailers, Home Depot.
Lowe's.
They have a list of contractors as well. So those are some really good places to start. In terms of trusting, I love what Brendan said about, because I have a plumber that I absolutely adore. He's done a great job, and he's out right now with knee surgery. And once I got in touch with him, I got in touch with him, he said, here's who you need to go to. Here's what you need to say. And then, trust your gut with them. I understand what you're saying about feeling like you're being taken advantage of. So I think doing a little bit of research on what pricing should be, and then trusting your gut on, it's treated me well when I've trusted my gut with it.
And there's also TaskRabbit is another, and that's for like smaller kind of projects. So it's kind of like, it's like a dating app sort of, but for people who can do random tasks. And I wonder if there's someone in the development team there that has ADHD, because one of the tasks you can actually hire people for is waiting in line. I'm not even kidding you. And they have reviews for people waiting in line. So take that. So there's lots of good resources out there, but I definitely think ask other people. And I would probably discourage the eeny, meeny, miny, mo, because your neighbors probably hire people. Just ask them.
Yeah. And also long-term, if you can get a relationship with someone like I have lucked into, and they recommend people to you, they're putting their reputation on the line when they make that recommendation. So you're more likely to get someone who's good. Like Jimmy will tell me, he'll be like, I don't really know, but this guy does that job. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not going to get mad at you if you're not really recommending this person, you're just giving me a name. But when he's like, nah, I'd hire this electrician, I'm like, cool, I'll do that then.
And I also add one of the things just that I've seen come up in group a few times. So people with ADHD tend to maybe have some spots in their home that they're not the proudest of. And what I can tell you is I've heard people, I'm going to put it off until I get this done. And what I can say is the people that come into your home and are doing those things for you are not coming in to judge how your house looks. So just in case that's something that comes up for anybody, I think it's a good thing to remember.
That's a good point right there to take a real quick break. We have some more questions for you when we come back. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ADHD Rewired's award-winning online coaching and accountability groups. Learn more at coachingrewired.com. Are you tired of being overwhelmed? Do you feel like your ADHD holds you back from achieving your goals? How would your life be transformed if you could create an actionable plan that was tailored to your ADHD and to make your calendar work for you, all while learning alongside other people with ADHD who understand the challenges you face?
What I learned is that with the right support, change is possible.
Before, I would ask myself, what do I even offer to the world? I was just in a really low place. I didn't know what to expect. It was just absolutely worth it.
I've never heard of anyone else struggling the way I feel I do.
I really feel this way, that this changed my life.
I am most proud of being able to be vulnerable, especially in my masterminds.
I'm most proud of how, despite how difficult these 10 weeks have been, not just in terms of work for this program, but many personal stressors, I didn't give up.
This community is amazing, and I feel like I found purpose.
What I did not expect was coming away with a group of people that I love and respect so much.
What I've accomplished in 10 weeks, I didn't do it alone. I did it with all of you. I did it with my A-team.
If you're thinking about joining this group, do it. If you're stuck and you know you need that extra push to help reach your goals but don't know where to start here.
When I think of success, I now think of the bravery that it takes to live a life with our condition. I think that the default mode that we're made to feel in society is to just feel shame. But I think realizing now that there's a lot of courage and bravery in vulnerability and sharing what you're struggling with, and then having the courage to advocate for yourself and just live unapologetically.
It just completely changed my outlook. I'm learning to reframe things. I see value in myself. I see where I can succeed. I see where I can have a lot of growth.
They just taught me to be compassionate with myself and to say, hey, this is a process.
If you're thinking about joining this group, if you think you need this, it's probably time to do it.
If you're thinking of joining this group, I would say absolutely do it. You'll gain such a greater understanding of yourself, and you will find a community just jumping out of their virtual chairs to support you. Be ready to be open, honest, and vulnerable with both yourself and your group.
If you're thinking of joining this group, just do it. You cannot regret this. You will not regret it. You only have gains. It's hard, but it's so worth it.
If you're ready to go from listening to ADHD Rewired to getting your ADHD rewired, then come join us in 2023 for our winter season of coaching and accountability groups. We are kicking off our winter registration season on October 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. Go now to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to our winter interest list, and so you can join us for our upcoming registration kickoff event on October 13th. And in honor of ADHD Awareness Month, we're offering an early bird registration discount to the first 10 people who register at our kickoff event. If you are one of the first 10 people to sign up at our kickoff event, you're going to get $500 off 2023 pricing. When you join us for our coaching registration events, you can get your questions answered and find out more about what our coaching groups are all about. Registration is by invitation only, so once you add your name to our interest list, keep an eye out in your email for instructions on what you'll need to complete to join us for our kickoff registration event and all future registration events. And if you have a question or two you would like to ask, it may be helpful to write them down and add them to your own calendar so you don't forget, because it's never too late to start planning ahead. Discover what our coaching groups are all about, get your questions answered, and take the first step. Go to coachingrewired.com to get your name added to the interest list, and don't miss out on your chance to get early bird pricing at our kickoff event on October 13th. Go now to coachingrewired.com to get started. Get curious, dream big, and come grow with ADHD Rewired. That's coachingrewired.com. And we are back. All right. We have a question from Lily, who asks, what to do about twitchy legs during movies or during car rides. I'm not ready to switch meds for that. So what to do about my husband's frequent tooth grinding or chopping? He has ADHD too and is also medicated. Okay. Kristen, you want to take this?
Well, yeah. Initially, the twitchy leg piece, I have a daughter who's 30 who is very much nonverbal autism. So my mind always goes to finding out what the source is of anything that has to do, that could be medical. I guess I'm thinking that you are basically thinking that the twitchy legs is a side effect, but I'm also curious, is that a restless leg issue? I have that, and it happens during car rides and long movies or stints where I'm sitting still, more still, and happens when you're tired. They believe there might also be possibilities. I think they're researching this, if it has to do with the absorption of iron in our system, which I imagine maybe vitamin D also. So it's a lot of ADHD similarity possibly that I hear in the community around this. And so, where's that coming from first before, attributing it to your ADHD med? I'm not so sure about the grinding teeth. I would just want to get to the source of what's bringing it on first. Those were my initial thoughts.
And the restless leg syndrome falls under the umbrella of periodic limb movement disorder. And we know that intense exercise can actually be very helpful for that. I think also magnesium can be helpful for that as well. MJ.
Okay. Twitchy legs. This is also related to a question that somebody else also has about restless feet and waking them up at night. So maybe this is helpful. So my partner also has ADHD and he has restless leg syndrome. Sometimes it's about the temperature in the room at night trying to sleep, kicks the blankets off the feet. You need to be cold because that heat just causes tension, I guess, in his legs is sort of how it's been described. exercise, like Eric mentioned, ever since we adopted our dog, we're getting out more, walking more, and I'm noticing that that's helping. And nutrition, minerals, from what I understand or hear, like having that proper nutrition sort of helps with the muscle twitches. And as for the teeth grinding, I haven't quite figured out what causes mine, but I did talk to my dentist about getting a night guard, because I do find it's mostly at night, because my partner says, oh my God, you grind your teeth so bad. So that was helpful. I'm still in the process of figuring out what's causing it. I'm sure it has something to do with anxiety. So maybe that's something, if that's part of your flavor of ADHD or something that's comorbid. This is also a reminder to myself to look into that.
Yeah, I can speak to both the things. So restless leg, one thing I found really helped with that, especially at night, is just having a weighted blanket, which also I know can be a problem with the heat, because I actually have found a weighted blanket that's just knitted cloth. So it's actually a lot cooler than a regular blanket. It's just very thick, heavy knitted cloth, which is also great because then it doesn't have all the beads that like roll around, and you have like, I'm weighted, but just on the sides of me, not on top of me. A couple weeks ago, I actually had a lot of issues with the TMJ and the jaw pain, which comes from grinding your teeth. And a lot of what can happen there is, MJ was saying, anxiety, you're tense, can also just happen from having your teeth in the wrong position, because our mouths shift over time. They're not static, which totally makes sense, but also not something I typically think about. So there's stretches you can do for your jaw that will help with the clenching, and just things like meditation can help to be like, I'm getting into reducing the stress and stuff. So that's what I found really helped for me.
The jaw part specifically, sometimes that's anxiety. So look at the role anxiety is playing in your partner's life and ways to manage that.
And I wonder too if like really like either gum or really like chewy kind of food like granola or
saltwater taffy.
I don't think any dentist is going to approve of that one.
Eric, I was just going to add on.
Yeah.
I did go to the dentist or the doctor for my jaw pain. They did recommend candy for me.
Really?
Yeah, they recommended hard, sour candies to suck on, because that motion of sucking for the sour really can help stretch the muscles and then relax them. So yes, I did get candy as a recommendation. Not from the dentist, though.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go to Dolly. He's asking, wants to discuss the impact of low estrogen on post-menopausal women. Does taking estrogen supplements assist with cognitive functioning? So obviously this is something to talk to your doctor about. I know that the long-term use of estrogen supplements, there are some risks involved in that, but it can help with cognitive functioning. I do know people in that age bracket, their doctors have recommended they come off the estrogen, and they don't want to because they say their brain feels better than it has in a long time. So that is something to kind of explore with your doctor. And, I know it's hard because, it's a needle in a haystack finding that doctor that really understands ADHD, and then even more so to find someone who understands like specifically women's issues related to menopause and hormone levels. But that information is out there. Right? So I would encourage you to, explore that using even Google Scholar as a search tool, because you can get some good ideas from just abstracts of articles. Okay. Lisa asks, I'm a professor at a small liberal arts college. My classes are small and intimate. My students generally like me a lot, but of course, the main complaint is my disorganization. What do you advise about sharing my, in parentheses, severe ADD with students and colleagues? Okay. This is kind of an HR question. So I'm wondering if Kat might want to take a stab at this one.
Well, I suppose it matters how much you want to disclose, because my understanding is you're asking, you want to disclose this to the students or with students and colleagues. So it depends. I hate that. I hate answering that way, but it depends on how, I guess, comfortable you feel with the institution in terms of how they would receive that information, if it is something that they would be willing to work with you on, or if it's an environment that it's something that you get judged on. So it's kind of knowing that environment and knowing if it's good to disclose or not. With the students, I feel like that's usually probably an okay thing to share. But once you share it with them, then you keep in mind that you're also sharing it with the staff in the school at some point as well.
Lisa's live here now. So let's get some more information from her.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. And academics is a kind of funny arena because, as professors, we have so much autonomy and control over our classroom and our research and all of that. So in many ways, we're independent operators. So in that way, I've always felt it's fine to share more than might happen in other workplaces. But on the other hand, there's nothing more judgmental than academics. I mean, I'm old. I've been at my institution for 25 years, and my ADD diagnosis is from about 15 years ago, and it explains everything. And I have tended not to share it with people until recently, within the last year or so, when I've started to realize how much it's had an impact. So I've been selective about who I tell it to, but you're absolutely right. As soon as you tell one person, the cat is out of the bag. I don't know what accommodations the school would make for me. We have extensive accommodations for students. Certainly when students have an ADD diagnosis and they share it with me, I tell them I've got it too. I mean, I guess I just wonder kind of professionally, like what the advice is.
It's interesting. So I think Kat and I sort of answered something kind of similarly several Q&As ago. And we got a little bit of flack for it. We say we encourage don't self-disclose on the workplace. Like it always depends, but do so very, very cautiously. And the episode, it was discussed in another ADHD Facebook group that I happened to be in. So I was tagged in the conversation. So I saw the conversation happening. And what I was really pleasantly surprised by was how many people actually responded to this post saying they did disclose in the workplace and had positive responses to it. So I think that the tide is beginning to shift, but there's still air on the side of let me really proceed with caution. And I think most importantly, we have to remember that the people in our workplace are not clinicians or coaches, right?
Right.
They are people who might have, the same understanding that the person next door does about ADHD, which is, they think it's hyperactive boys, right? So we have to really look at what is the functional impairment. So where are we struggling? And then what are the different accommodations and scaffolding that we can create for ourselves to sort of meet those needs? Because, you tell your boss that you have ADHD, they're not going to really care. Tell them that this is what you need to be successful. That will matter.
And when you're trying to decide if you want to disclose or not, you're actually kind of in a good place to be able to judge what the water is like.
Yeah.
Because you work in a school, right? Which does not mean it's good water. It doesn't mean the water's safe. As a guy who just worked in education long enough, I would get a read for how, by your peers, right? How are students with ADHD perceived? Yeah. Because that'll clue you in about how you might be perceived. Now, it's not a one-to-one because they might be like, it's fine. There's a chance that teachers are like, it's fine for kids to have ADHD, but it's not okay for you as an adult professional to have ADHD. So there's that. But if there's a strong undercurrent in your school that the kids with ADHD are obnoxious or suck or terrible or don't care or they're lazy or whatever, and that undercurrent is not being actively squashed by administration, I would think a little more carefully about disclosing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's very, very helpful. I mean, I think that generally my colleagues are at least quiet if they think that, because they also know they're not supposed to say things like that. So I think that some of them might harbor secret ideas about, ADD and dyslexia and every single other thing that shows up. On campus, we're starting to have more of a conversation about neurodivergence, like much more of an open conversation. And I've kind of thought, as a more senior person, there may be a time where there is some utility in my coming out The downside about ADD for me is the level of scholarly organization. So I have been stalled because I've had, an ADD problem writing my second scholarly book, which is required for promotion to full. I don't know how I wrote my first book, but I, and published it and did it, but I did. So the problem is ADD explains that, but I have colleagues who always think I'm looking for an excuse. And so that, is kind of maybe the broader issue about how will all of us be treated as using ADD as an excuse for disorganization.
Well, and it's really looking at, all right, so you're sharing that you have ADHD, like, so what do you need to do about that? So that's fine. I think that when we look at that as an excuse, as an explanation, it's an excuse if you're having a hard time with something and you say, I have ADHD, and that's the end of the conversation, right? It's an explanation when you say, I have ADHD and my ADHD makes it hard for me to do this. So this is what I'm doing to try to manage that. That's an explanation. You may want to consider a writing coach, or, I think when we have a big project or anything that we just feel stuck on and we're like, how do I do this? How do I do this? We're asking the wrong question. Change it from a how to a who. Who can help me with this? Right? You hear me say on the podcast every week, starting is the hardest part. And when you're looking at something like this, I would imagine that starting is the hardest part. It's as much as I would love to be able to have like a PhD after my name, the idea of having to write a dissertation in a doctorate level program is, while I'll keep my master's degree and I'm stopping there because I have no desire to write a PhD level dissertation. So the fact that you're doing scholarly work is amazing. And that you've had this job for as long as you have is amazing. So you're doing, it sounds like a lot of things right. So, all right, let's go to another question. Thanks, Lisa. Let's go to Frederique, who asks, are there any apps that you would recommend to help with time management and motivation, etc.? Or would you say apps for ADHD are overrated? I think they're overrated. And I'm saying that now, if you had asked me 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have said this is like the best thing to happen to ADHD since Ritalin, right? Like when Siri came on board on the iPhone, I was like, this is a game changer. A tool is just a tool, right? We need to look at what is the actual issue that we are trying to solve. What is the function of the tool that we are trying to use? We just had a conversation about an hour ago in our alumni community about, don't start with, I see this tool. Let me see how I can figure out how to use this. Because it's very backwards, right? Like, let's start with a problem and then identify and try to find, are there tools that can help me solve this particular problem? The issue is it comes down to sort of the fundamentals of planning, the behavioral aspects of planning. So it's about information management. Is it easy to access? Is it easy to input? Are there only a couple steps to really engage in the particular program? And as far as motivation, there's some apps that do some things, but it'll work for a little while. Which is part of the thing with ADHD. Like, we find this great tool and it works great for a little while until it doesn't, right? So find the tool, try to stay with it for as long as you can. If you find yourself getting bored with it, acknowledge that that's what's happening, that you're getting bored with it. It's not that it's a problem with the tool, you're just getting bored with it, right? So you can hop between to-do list apps if that helps you stay engaged with the app. Will, how about you?
100% what you were saying, because there's so many things where it's like, yeah, I want this tool to solve the problem, but that's not it's the underlying strategy and what you want to do. When I first started Hacking Your ADHD, one of my initial ideas was I was going to really highlight tools you can use. And I kept going away from that because I'm like, well, I have to explain the strategy of why you would use the tool. And doing that a lot is like, oh, well, specific tools aren't as helpful as figuring out what is actually going on behind the scenes. Because if you're going, I can never plan my day, what tool will help me plan my day? You're never going to find the tool that's going to help you plan your day. The issue is always, I don't have time, I'm not doing it. And so going, okay, if I can identify what my issue is first and then look at, okay, can't plan my day, it's because I don't give myself time in the morning to do it or the evening before. And then it's not real. The tool is not going to be as important there. It's okay. Especially I find is when I'm looking for tools, try find the like minimum viable product that will work. Go, hey, if a sticky note writing down what I need to do tomorrow is going to work, okay, great. And then I could go, well, this could be nicer if I had, had it on my phone or, it was actually in my calendar. Then I can start upgrading the tool and figuring out what I need. But it's first going, okay, what's the least amount of thing I need first? Because that's going to be your sweet spot on solving that problem.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. All right, let's take one more quick break. And when we come back, we'll have a couple other questions for you. So we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from you, our listeners who tune in every week. If you're listening to this right now and you're finding value in this episode, then I hope we've been able to earn your subscription. So hit subscribe, or like, or follow in your favorite podcast player so you don't miss out on new episodes that come out every week. And it is ADHD Awareness Month, so share this episode if you're finding value in it on your social media platforms or with someone you know personally who you think could benefit from this. And if you're new to ADHD Rewired, be sure to check out the rest of the ADHD Rewired podcast family, including Hacking Your ADHD with Will Kerb, ADHD Essentials with Brendan Mahan, and ADHD Diversified with MJ Siemens. You can find all of the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network by going to ADHDrewired.com/podcast network. And coming soon, we're adding 2 new podcasts on the network, each hosted by our ADHD Rewired coaches. So keep tuning in to stay in the loop. Then every second Tuesday of the month, which if you are listening to this on the day it came out, that's today, you can join us for our live Q&A. Join me, our other podcasters on the network, and coaches Kat Hoyer and Kristen Martz today, October 11th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Register to join us on Zoom for this and all of our monthly live Q&As by going to ADHDrewired.com/events, where you can ask us your ADHD-related questions and maybe just see how ADHD we can really be. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the show and all of our shows. Your support really does mean the world to us because we know the impact that we are having. So help us have even more of an impact. Share it, leave us reviews. All of those things help spread the word. Discover more from ADHD Rewired by going to ADHDrewired.com. That's ADHDrewired.com. Support for this podcast comes from Adult Study Hall. Do you have a creative idea you've been wanting to start? Would you like someone to do laundry with? What about having company while you study? If you think you would benefit from real-time accountability, working alongside other adults with ADHD who are also working on things that they want to get done, then come join us at adultstudyhall.com. From our weekly guided sessions, also known as Adult Study Hall Plus, to our 24/7 drop-in rooms. There are plenty of ways that you can utilize the power of real-time accountability to get your to-dos from to-do to done. It's only $19.99 a month, and it is free for the first week to try. If you are motivated by working with others while being able to talk through and check in on your progress, then join one of our Adult Study Hall Plus sessions, or ASH Plus, which are our themed and guided sessions that happen every week. But if you prefer to work at your own pace and still need the company, our 24/7 drop-in room, or ASH 24/7, is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whether you need to clean out your closet or clean out your fridge, study or finish an assignment, sort your paperwork, or write a resume, we got you covered. Join the virtual ADHD-friendly body doubling community created just for us by going to adultstudyhall.com. Come give it a try. It's free for the first week and only $19.99 a month after that. That's adultstudyhall.com. All right. Hey, Will, you want to transition it back for us?
Welcome back to, this is not Hacking Your ADHD. Welcome back to ADHD Rewired's live Q&A.
All right. So I asked Josh during the break, who wrote a novel in his question, to resubmit in a more abridged way, and he did. So thank you. Any advice on getting yourself to move forward when you feel emotionally held back? Then a correction, any advice on getting yourself to move forward with self-care and activities when you feel emotionally held back? Okay, both actually really good questions. I'll start with the second one there. So any advice on getting yourself to move forward with self-care and activities when you feel emotionally held back? MJ, go for it.
And this also kind of ties into the question that we had before the break, and they mentioned motivation. For me, I feel like the motivation to engage in self-care is part feeling and part compartmentalization, I guess, and like knowing intellectually that self-care is important. But what I really had to ask myself is why it's important. You know, what has helped me is asking for accountability to show that I'm, engaging in self-care things. Like if I'm going for a walk, take a picture of me outside with the dog, or take a picture of my lunch, because sometimes I forget to eat lunch. And then I ask myself more questions of not just why is self-care important to me, but how does taking care of myself affect the people around me? How does taking care of myself affect the way that I show up at work, show up at home, show up for my partner, show up for myself? What's the benefit of the self-care activity that I want to engage in? And what are the detriments or consequences of not doing that thing, right? Like if I'm not exercising regularly, I'm foggy and my body is stiff and tired. If I'm not sleeping well, or if my sleep hygiene is kind of a crapshoot, then the next day is usually significantly more of a struggle than it would have been if I would stop, binging Netflix shows or YouTube documentaries. And we're going to forget when we are feeling like crap the next day, like, oh, how come I feel like that? Oh, I remember now that my self-care makes me feel better, but we forget that kind of stuff. So it's for me, what is helpful is just continuing to ask myself those questions of why is this helpful? What was the result of doing the thing that was positive? What are the detriments of not doing the thing? And really, I just want to avoid pain. And sometimes that's a good enough motivator for me. Yeah, right? So self-care has been an emotional battle for me. And when you first start engaging in it, if it's something that you are struggling with, it's going to feel strange and foreign. And there's probably a story that you're telling yourself. The story that I was telling myself was that I don't deserve it. But if we practice and we try and we do start to feel better, my hope is that becomes the reminder that, yes, we can engage in self-care and we are worth taking care of ourselves, so that we can show up in other areas of our lives as the best version of ourselves that we can be. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. The other thing too is to think about, one, like when we're looking for sort of motivation to do self-care, and really like motivation to do anything, one of the things that can trip us up is thinking that we need to wait to feel motivated to start. And here's maybe this is a bitter pill to swallow, but motivation comes after you start. When we talk about motivation, what I think a lot of people are actually meaning is activation, right? That oomph to get started, right? Because when you're sitting there thinking about, oh, I know I would feel much better if I exercise, and you're thinking about it, but you're not moving off the couch, that's an activation issue, not a motivation issue, right? So if that's the case, if the thing is you want to go work out, but you are stuck on the couch and your couch's gravitational pull is much greater than the rest of Earth, first just lean forward, then push yourself up, and then ask yourself, all right, what's next? Right? Really break it down to the smallest thing. The other thing is that self-care is not necessarily just like pampering, right? Like planning is a form of self-care. Doing your budget is a form of self-care. Anything that is really doing something for your future self is a form of self-care, right? And so I think it's really important that we're not just looking at kind of the pampering kind of stuff as forms of self-care. Although they absolutely can be. I get a monthly massage as one form of self-care. And is that pampering? Yes. Is it just as good for me personally as like therapy once a month? I love a good massage. So, it's figuring out what works for you. Kristen.
So a couple of things. First, I recently heard a quote that has really struck me into thinking about the language around self-care. The quote was, true self-care means not having to plan for it, that you're just doing it. And so I started creating a determining phrase. like the massage, something I don't do daily would be self-love. I give myself self-love at a time when I need a pick-me-up. I read through your whole novel. I like the novels, so I read it. So yes, I'm going to speak a little differently around this and address the piece about because you spiral in that emotional negative thoughts and emotional impact of that. This might be a suggestion. If you were here, I would ask you if you were ready to receive it, but I'm going to throw it out there. I would start having a timer on you. And when you hit those moments, time it or deadline time it for yourself. Say, okay, I'm only going to sit with this for 2 minutes. Because I think what the practice is about is not to totally deflect yourself and never be in those moments. It's about how to regulate. Regulate for me does not mean calm down. It means be healthy in the negative emotion or any emotion you get. So practicing how to be healthy in that emotion and feeling that and being okay with that is a really important piece. Then to toggle it with a quick thing of self-love, maybe reframing it, saying, yeah, this got me down and I can move forward now and do this other thing, something like that, and start to practice that reframing of the cognition, but not avoiding or neglecting that negative emotion also.
You know, we've all have been on the receiving end of someone telling us to do it, right? Which is really annoying to hear because it's you know, clearly the person doesn't understand the actual difficulty we're having with whatever such sage advice of just do it is designed to, you know, help with. But if we take that idea and say, just do it anyways, to me, because I use that phrase personally, because it sort of acknowledges, yeah, this is hard. This is really hard. I really don't want to be doing this right now. I know my future self will thank me for this, but at this moment, my future self and my present self aren't really on speaking terms. Right. So it's acknowledging that feeling. And I think that's part of what Kristen was talking about, sort of being okay and sitting with that kind of uncomfortable feeling, acknowledging that it's hard and trying to move forward anyways. Brendan?
The bit about kind of spirals and thinking about it and processing and all that stuff. Processing is valid. Like sometimes we need to process the fact that we feel crappy about going to the gym, eating a salad, scheduling our day, right? Sometimes we have to take time to process that. But we also have to pay attention to what's going on with that processing, because that processing, at some point, that processing is climbing the wall of awful, right? You're doing it. You're climbing the wall of awful. But don't forget that one of the things that doesn't work is trying to go around the wall, right? Like you can't go around the wall. It's a metaphor and it's infinitely wide. I know because I made it up. But what you can do is climb halfway up the wall and then start climbing horizontally in an effort to go around the wall. And even though you're on the wall, you're not going up anymore. And you have to be a little aware of when that happens. You've got to pay attention for that shift to maybe occur. It doesn't necessarily always occur, but we have ADHD. We're probably going to at some point make that shift. And if we know that that's a possibility, then when it happens, we can hopefully catch it and then go, I am not climbing anymore, at least not up. I'm climbing horizontal and that's not useful. So what is my next step? And that's going to vary situationally. First video for the Wall of Awful is in the chat for those of you who are like, what is he talking about?
And we'll link it to the episode show notes as well. For those who are listening on the podcast and going, what chat? This is a podcast.
True story.
Okay. Will, I think you said you had a question.
Yes, specifically with kids and eating, but just going back to only eating safe foods and only...
Well, when you say safe foods, what do you mean?
I mean foods that you put on the table and the kids will eat anytime. You know, like you have... My kids love, plain pasta, but with cheese that they can put on, shredded cheese they can put on top. And it's the issue of, having like 2 or 3 of these items and being like, okay, we want to have you to have variety so that you don't get stuck, because then that happens is that ADHD kicks in and you get tired of your safe foods. And then there's nothing. It's just plain bread. And that's hard with ADHD because that's not enough.
All right. So bottom line the question.
Yeah, I know. I realized I didn't ask a question. I just said this is a problem I have. Yeah, I don't even know what the question is.
Is it how to get your kids to eat a wider variety of foods?
I guess, but that feels like not coming from the ADHD angle, but it is definitely a ADHD issue where we get black and white thinking and stuck in routines.
Well, I know in dealing with kids and sort of food, sort of like not sensitivities, but more of that, like, oh, I don't eat, that brand of chicken nugget. I only eat this brand of chicken nugget, right? Anytime you're exposing kids to new stuff, literally the first time, let them play with it. They don't need to eat it. Let them literally play with it. Have them have it on their plate, just one part of it, one piece of it. They don't have to eat it. So it's sort of that, like getting them sort of more used to the exposure of that. For example, my son for the longest time thought that he's like, oatmeal looks so gross. He's like, it smells good, but it looks so gross. And so he wouldn't eat oatmeal. And so I eat oatmeal almost every morning. And my partner was actually able to get my son to have oatmeal for the first time. I was like, oh my God. So sometimes it might be you need somebody else that's not you to introduce the food, right? So that has worked. And I don't know, maybe taking them to the store with you as well. Brendan and then Kristen.
The first thing I want to recommend is change your language. Stop calling it safe foods because that implies all the other foods are dangerous and you don't want to be stuck there. So with my kids, I say reliable, right? Like you will reliably eat these foods. I literally have made a list. Like these are the reliable foods. Like these are the ones I put it on a plate. You're going to eat it, right? Chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, that kind of stuff. Then there's the sometimes foods. And then there's the occasional foods, right? Like sometimes we can convince them to eat a hamburger. Occasionally we can get mashed potatoes in there, right? Like that kind of thing. And get that list going and use it, right? Like make the list and then use it and throw those occasional foods in, throw the sometimes foods in, then revisit it after a little while and see if those foods have moved around at all. Because the reliable foods might become sometimes foods because they're sick of chicken nuggets, right? Like that can happen. And the occasional foods or the sometimes foods might suddenly be delicious and they would eat mac and cheese or mashed potatoes or whatever every day if you let them. And then the other thing that I did, this is coming up, we did Omnivorous October, which was every October, every week we tried a new food and we ate it like a couple times, 2 or 3 times that week. So we got repeated exposure. And then here's the bananas part. I ordered protein bars made out of crickets, like cricket bars. And my kids knew they were made out of crickets. I couldn't find actual crickets. If I could have found actual crickets, I would have done that. And I said, I will eat this when you eat the thing that you don't want to eat, right? Because they don't want to eat oatmeal as much as I don't want to eat crickets. So I was like, I'll cut that deal in a heartbeat. If I could have found real crickets, I would have done it, but I just couldn't track them down. So that's a strategy too, right? Is get some weird, gross food that you're like, oh, why would I ever want to eat that? And recognize that that's how your kid feels about mashed potatoes or whatever, and cut a deal if you're willing.
My thing I would do is to really provide a lot of ownership of the problem for the child. And that might include, having the child help come up with, well, what do I want to try this week? And if I eat this, Dad, will you eat that? Yeah, it could even just be food exchanges. It doesn't have to be crickets. And the validation piece. And I think that we all, because I'm a parent too, we would get really, really excited. Even he's 21 and he'll eat something. And I'll go, oh my gosh, you tried that. And I make this big reaction and it ruins it. So that reactive piece of, oh my gosh, you tried it and you ate it. And it brings too much attention for some kids and it shuts it down in a different way. So thinking about the validation piece of, I can see why you might not want to try that, and then when they do, just going, oh, okay, what'd you think of it? And having them give you what their response is to it rather than you're inside going, yes, I was right. So those are just a couple of things that I think of because my kids do it to me. They try to make me eat and I'm like, wait, no, this is my decision. And so I feel like the independence piece is a big chunk of it.
Well, and they also do have pediatric nutritionists that might be able to help as well.
Yeah. My daughter's already in occupational therapy to help look at the nutrition and doing a lot of these things. And I think a big piece of it right now is just school just started. She needs more ownership of what she's doing. But it's also, I'm like, this is a fight we've been having for a few weeks now. So like if I getting some new ideas in there is good. And I will say, Brendan, with the crickets, that's I have already tried cricket bars.
It tastes like metal.
Yeah. And cricket protein I was like, if they can get this down, it's such a good protein source. Like I saw there's a movie Snowpiercer where they're like making bars out of crickets. And I'm like, this is great, except it's supposed to be a horrifying scene. And I'm like, what a great idea.
It's kind of a chirp trick. With that, will you close it out with your moment of dad?
Why don't melons have weddings? Or why do melons only have weddings?
Because if they can't elope.
There you go. They can't elope.
Oh, so if I can't elope, what will my honey do?
Oh no! Cat and I are like, whoa!
I just want to thank everyone for asking questions, all of our podcasters here and coaches, and everyone here in the community who does make this what it is, because we couldn't do this without you. So we will see you back here next month, same time. So bring your questions, and we'll be here for you to help you with your journey on getting your ADHD rewired. This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired podcast network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.